Hi, and welcome back to another one of our candidate conversations. As I've said, in the other shows that we've recorded so far, that community television is trying to get an hour-long interview with each of the candidates who will be in a contested race on the May primary. And so looks like we're going to have about 2/3 of them, a little bit more,
Good.
all totaled, who've agreed to come in for an interview. And I have with me Rae Perkins, who is in the Republican primary running against Art Robinson for Peter DeFazio's seat in Congress. Okay, so generally been asking 3 questions and then see where the conversation goes from there. But the first question is, where do you come from? Who are you as a person? The second question is, why are you doing this? And the third one is, what sort of issues do you think are important? And we can expand all the way from any one of these and keep going. So, first question, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
All right.
And so, where did you start out? Where'd you grow up?
Okay. Well, I grew up in. Oh my gosh, people in Oregon are going to hate me, but I grew up in Southern California. I was born in Virginia, daughter of a Navy man.
Okay.
And so then.
So where in Southern California?
Down in Orange County in Cypress.
Ah, okay. I lived there for close to 20 years.
Oh, okay.
Not in Cypress, but in the area.
In the area. Yeah. And went to high school. Tiger Woods actually graduated from the high school that I went to, my alma mater at Western High. So, moved up here with my husband when I was, how old was I? 19 years old when we moved up here. So we've been up here a long time. And so we live in Albany.
Okay.
And so married, couple of kids, 10 grandbabies.
Okay, that's almost qualifies as native.
Yeah, I figured, I'm a naturalized citizen because both of our kids were born here. So we decided that I'm a naturalized Oregonian after, we've been here since 1975, so it's been a long time.
So is it the ducks or the beavers?
It's both.
It's both, huh?
Yeah, so
there's a political answer for you.
Well, it's going to get better. So this is what my husband and I have always done. We have rooted for both teams until they play each other. Because we live in Albany, we're going to root for the Beavers. I work at Oregon State University currently, but I do drive a yellow Corvette. So I'm displaying some duckdom there.
I see.
So no, we like to root on both the teams, and if the Ducks beat the Beavers and they go on to championship games, we root for the Ducks. Yeah. We're not anti.
Not anti-duck.
No, we're not. And for some reason our kids and grandkids are all big Duck fans, so it works.
Well, it's some excitement, when the teams do well.
Yeah.
But okay, so you got to here when you were 19.
Yes.
And what have you been doing between then and now? Between then and now,
mention the kids. So I've been fortunate that I've had several different career opportunities where the jobs have been fairly flexible. So I was a stay-at-home mom for several years, or worked part-time. My background, starting from office environments, I moved into financial services, help people with investments and insurance products, and then I went into real estate. Real estate died, and it came to the point of, it's costing me more money per month between advertising and fees than I'm making, so I went into banking. And then from banking, I transitioned back into being a full-time financial advisor. And then
so here you are.
And now here I am.
So education, college?
Education. So I have my associates from Lynn Benton Community College in business management. My undergrad in political science. And a minor in speech communication from OSU.
Oh, cool.
And I also had gone up to the University of Portland and took some master's levels classes and got a certificate in executive certificate in financial planning.
Cool.
So,
so if you had it to do again, what degree would you go after?
If I had it to do again, I would stick with the politics. but I would definitely get the econ that I wanted to do. I told friends years ago when I was still in banking, and I said, I'm crazy enough that I want to go back to school and get my degree, and I'm so crazy I would probably go get a doctorate in economics.
Okay.
And
Awesome.
so there's so much out there, but I can get online and learn most of that stuff anyway.
Actually, it turns out I'm about to turn 63. It's coming up pretty quick. And at 65, you get to take classes at the U of O for free.
Really? Oh, wow.
So it may be, I may actually do the PhD in physics, finish it up.
Oh, interesting.
So that's where most of my light reading goes.
Okay.
Is general relativity, quantum mechanics, that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, I brought Milton Friedman's book with me for a little light reading.
I see.
Tonight.
So, well, we can talk economics here. I have an MBA, and spent a bunch of time, in some of the electives doing some more economics classes.
Okay.
But okay, so we've got a sense of who you are, and the next question is why are you doing this?
Well, it's interesting. People ask me if I've always had an interest in politics, and I can tell you I didn't grow up in a political family. I do remember when Goldwater was running, and we called him gutter water. My parents.
I never heard that before.
Yeah,
but okay.
yes, but I remember. Sometimes things stick in your mind, and so people go, "Well, wait a minute, Goldwater was a Republican."
Yeah.
My mother and stepfather were not Republicans.
I see.
So so there was that little influence there.
So how did you wind up in the Republican Party from that?
How did that happen? So when I turned 18, I looked at my then very handsome boyfriend, who's today my husband.
Right.
As I was registering, I said, I feel like a Republican, but I'm registering as a Democrat because that's what my parents were. Right. And so several years later, we looked at each other and we said, we're Republicans. Why are we registered as Democrats?
So how did you become, what?
So what got me politically?
Yeah, what got you going in that direction?
Well, I remember in high school, I wanted to run for office, and I did, and did not win, and that was okay. It was a popularity contest in high school a lot of times. When I went to Lynn Benton Community College, I ran for the student body, and I won, and was the business manager, which is the treasurer position. So it's something that has been inside of me, without any external prompting, and so it's just something that I feel has been put in me, and has always been there. And I did run for city council in '94. In Albany. I was going to run again, and a former employer and I had a conversation. He suggested I wait till the kids are grown, so that I could have time to dedicate to being a public servant, service to the public, and not time away from my children who they're in middle school. So I went, that was very wise advice on his behalf, because he knew what was going to be involved. So I waited. But again, it's just something, sometimes there's something in your life that you feel like you really need to do. Some people will call it a calling. I call it a calling. Some people, they feel like, I need to be a doctor. That's what I need to do. I need to go out there and do this. And they don't understand why. They just know in their gut that's what they're supposed to do. And that's where I am. I know that beyond any shadow of any doubt that this is what I'm meant to do.
Yeah, I guess I should, I've disclosed this several times during this series, but I ran for office, state representative in Watertown, Massachusetts in 1984. And I did that coming off of being on the staff of Cranston's bid for the presidency.
Okay.
Now, when Cranston ran, we knew there was no chance he'd ever get elected. But the thing that occurred was we kept the nuclear arms race on the front page of every paper in the nation for 6 months. And literally within 2 weeks of his dropping out after the New Hampshire primary, it was gone as an issue.
Interesting.
But the thing that I look at is that Reagan at that time was getting very itchy about the fact that this was being discussed and he didn't have anything to contribute. And I think that made the summit between Gorbachev and Reagan in Iceland occur. That had we not done that, it probably would not have occurred, and they would probably have not, you know, they'd have done more posturing rather than
Right.
trying to find an agreement.
Right.
So I think that that amount of work, that those, you know, many months of knocking on doors and doing all the other stuff that one does in a campaign paid off. That the world is a better place because we ran that campaign. And so I ran for office. I knocked on 8,000 doors over a summer. But I sort of self-destructed at the end by putting the fact that I was pro-choice on a piece of literature in a Roman Catholic working community, working class community. And in fact, somebody told me that they were actually preaching against me at the Roman Catholic Church, and so I showed up, and sure enough, it's like, Joe Tyndall is a baby killer, and you don't want to talk to him. And so all those doors that I'd been knocking on where people would say, oh, you know, I like you, you know, I've been reading your stuff, and you know, yeah, I think I'm going to vote for you, to slam the door, you're a baby killer, go away. But I still wound up, I think, with 28% of the vote in a three-way race. And so I did.
Very respectable.
I certainly beat the spread, let's put it that
yeah,
way.
that's good.
So, you know, I do have some sense of what it is that you're doing. And so let's go from there. So what are you doing in terms of your campaign? You know, you've got to somehow convince enough people that you're a better alternative than Art Robinson. So convince me.
Convince you.
And tell me how you're going to convince other people.
Well, pretty much what you see is what you get. I was at an event this last summer, and one of the candidates that I ran against in the primary for the U.S. Senate was speaking first, and this person said that they could not be themselves in the primary. They couldn't really speak what they thought.
And why is that?
Because that was what they were told.
Yeah.
I got up there after this person left, and I said, first I thanked everybody for voting, and I named the other 4 candidates before I even thanked them for voting for me.
Yeah.
And of course they were shocked, but the point was, you voted, and that to me was important, that people take the time to learn the candidates, learn the issues, and vote. So, but then I went on, I'm always myself.
Yeah.
I am who I am, I cannot be what I'm not, and I will answer the questions to the best that I can. If I don't know, I will say I don't know. If I'm wrong, I admit it, and I'm just me. And I think that that's huge, and I am told that I'm very personable, and I work at that to make sure, not that I'm not, but just to make sure that other people are comfortable. I call myself a Main Street American.
Okay.
And
So what does that mean?
It's a Main Street American. It's Main Street American is. It's not middle class, it's not upper class, which I don't like those terms anyway, because then you're putting people in categories. A Main Street American, they're people, they work.
Yeah.
They have families, or maybe they don't have families. Not everybody's going to have children. But they're out there in the trenches doing whatever it is that they're doing, day in and day out, and just living their life. They're not stuck on some excluded location. Away from the reality of what everybody else is going through out there. They really see what people go through. A Main Street American, a lot of times they've gone through the good times and they've gone through the bad times. And so they know the reality of life here in America.
But I think the distinction that's being made, I mean, that's sort of, you know, Richard Nixon called it the silent majority. You know, we've got other terms that have gone into that sort of thing. But the distinction today seems to be between those people who are, you know, doing well, the sort of, it's the 1%, the top, you know, 1/10 or 1/100th of a percent, and then there's everybody else who, I mean, median household income has not, you know, if you correct for inflation, has not changed since the 1970s.
It hasn't, and that's a real interesting point. The inflation, when Reagan, we were talking Reagan, when he became president, well, back in 1980, unemployment was over 12%, inflation was 12%, the prime lending rate was 21.75%. So what happened, a lot of people don't know this, and I'm sure that you do, Joe, because you've studied some economics. They took a market basket of goods, And they said, okay, we're going to call this market basket of goods 100.
Yeah.
And we're going to track the fluctuation in price from that market basket of goods. But what's not in there? Food,
Right.
energy, housing, medical. What does that leave? It leaves things that we don't really need. It leaves all of the stuff that we would use our discretionary income for. So when people say, well, the consumer price index says inflation is 2%, I happen to know that my utility bill is higher than 2% than it was a year ago, or my food bill is definitely higher. There's a disconnect, and that's why, is because the numbers are not accurate. Unemployment has come out at 4.9%. It's a lie. They're not counting people. I'll use my son, who's out of unemployment money. He's not working.
And
He's not counted. So numbers like that are twisted and turned to suit, and it doesn't matter what political party. It's not right. It's done.
You brought up the thing about inflation at the beginning of the Reagan era. Okay, that actually was solved by Jimmy Carter. Okay, if you remember,
And see, and I could be wrong.
we went into the first. Okay, we started having inflation starting in the 1960s, and the question is, what caused it? Okay, and the answer, these sort of official answers, don't actually answer that. But we began to see, and you mentioned the prime lending rate. Okay, we began to see what's called hyperinflation, because usually what you have is the prime rate will be whatever the inflation rate is plus 3%. Okay, and we can track interest rates all the way down to before Jesus Christ.
Pretty much, yeah.
And in fact, one of my textbooks, when I was doing that, had a chart of inflation all the way down to 1000 BC.
Wow.
Okay, and but the thing is that we saw hyperinflation, and hyperinflation is when the difference between inflation and the prime rate gets to be more than 3%. In other words, there's an expectation of future inflation that's built into that, and so that's hyperinflation, and you really got to deal with it at that point. Now, what Jimmy Carter did was he attempted to do the same kind of fiscal management that John Kennedy got away with, because when Kennedy tried it, the markets were not sophisticated enough yet. And so, but when Carter did, there were people who had worked out strategies as to how to extract money from this engineering. And so it went on for about 3 weeks. A big cash flow went out, and they said, oh, we can't do this anymore. Time out. So Carter appointed Paul Volcker as head of the Fed.
Right, the Volcker rule.
And I think knowing full well that it was going to cost him the election. And the only solution to inflation is a recession. And so they ran a recession, unemployment, to do it. And so it went on for about 18 months before Reagan took office. And Reagan kept it going for about another 2 years, which is what was necessary to sort of pull the stuff out of it. So it's the stay the course, stay the course. But people give credit to Reagan for doing that, when in reality it was Jimmy Carter who bit the bullet, and it was very painful and did what needed to be done.
So, and this is a little bit sideline off of the issues, but yet it is an issue. And